Good. Good.
All right, we'll get started. Thanks for being here.
All right, it's great to see everybody. Start out Scout Team Players of the Week. Last week, defensively, it was Chief Collins. Offensively, it was Connor Carty. I'm excited to be back home. It seems like forever since we've been at Jones AT&T, and so I'm excited. You know, I was sitting here thinking about coming to the press conference, and I've had so many questions about like Will Hammond and his role, and our running backs and their role, and our two kickers and their role. And I think it's important to understand that we've got to sell out. It's a night game. I love our creative team and what they're doing, but there is a huge role that's going to take place in the stands this Saturday. This game is huge. Kansas, if you look at them, they should be 6-0. Easily could be 6-0. They were dominating Missouri at Missouri. They are a really good football team. This quarterback is the real deal. The receiver, I think, is leading the Big 12 in yardage. They've got two legit tight ends. And so when I say that, I think the role of our fans, Red Raider Nation, I really need you guys to, one, understand that it's not about throwing tortillas. Like, let's get it out of the way right off the bat, and then let's focus on when that defense, which is the best defense in the country, when that defense takes the field, stand up, get loud. My guys are going to be helping. They're going to be waving their arms when they take the field. But, I go back to the Utah game, and I've never experienced a louder crowd when the defense takes the field. And I know we have a better fan base. I know that we have a more passionate fan base. I know everybody in this room knows we have a more passionate fan base. I think Utah found out how passionate our fan base was. I know Houston for sure found out how passionate our fan base is. And so I think it's really important that we do that. I go to our basketball games and I see whenever an opponent misses a free throw that we're tallying those misses because of how loud we are, and we affect the game. And, when we were at Utah, what their crowd and their student section, they tallied the pre-snap penalties that they caused. And so I think it's really important. I know my role is to make sure I have this team ready to play in the biggest game that I've coached in since I've been at Texas Tech. Because there's so many things that we can build off of and continue to push. And so I just need everybody's help to really focus on that. It's not about the tortillas this week. It's not about, us being defiant of there is a rule in place, and I'm already having issues with our team. It's my fault, but we're the most penalized team in the Big 12, and that's on me and our coaching staff and our players. We don't need anything to add to it. So if you're going to focus on something, really talking to our students and everybody that shows up every single week, let's focus on when the best defense in the country steps on the field, and they are going to play like their hair's on fire, that we get up on our feet and we get extremely loud. And everybody in this room, y'all help me out with that message. Push it on everything that y'all have social media-wise, and I'll retweet it and retweet it and retweet it, because or re-exit, whatever it is that you do nowadays with whatever the platform is. But I think that's really important. So with that, I'll open up with questions.
Coach, have you reevaluated your red zone offense after Saturday's game?
Yeah, it really, thank you, brother. It really comes down to what I just said that I'm struggling with, is the pre-snap penalties, because we are down in the end zone and we have a penalty. We have movement in the offensive line. We're going to walk in on that play. Then the next play, we run toss sweep. We have movement by the tight end. We're going to walk in on that play. And so that was more than anything what caused that. And, I think everybody watching football and around the country sometimes are really kind of interested too of like what a touchdown is. I really felt like that Cam Dickey scored. I don't know from all the angles that we have, TV and our videos, that he didn't score. But they have the same angles, and they said they didn't, so that's fine. We should have scored the very next play. So I think that's the biggest thing because I rewatched the TV copy, and I know y'all do too. But I rewatched the TV copy last night, and going into that game, we were 65% in the red zone, and we kicked a lot of field goals, and so we've got to focus on that. That's something that's going to be it is every single week, but just continue to focus on it.
Coach, why is the national narrative that your team's success is directly just because of your NIL wrong?
Probably because it's been since 2008 that we've been ranked this high, so it's I think that's one part of it. I think the other part of it is that was kind of the driving narrative all through the winter and the spring, that what Tech is doing. And I think it discounts you could keep saying it, but if you just turn on the TV or turn on the film, it's hard to say that this team doesn't care about each other and doesn't love this university and doesn't play really hard. And then anytime any of you guys or any national media interviews any of my guys, they're saying the same thing. It's maybe people think it's a standard line in this building, but it's a true belief that this is a really tight team.
What max percentage of their potential has your team achieved so far?
No, we haven't. Honestly, I don't think we've come close. I think a lot of it is self-inflicted wounds. I think both Utah and Houston, those games were close or somewhat close from the standpoint of not opening up the game. I felt like we should have scored 60 the other night, and I know everybody else does. Whenever you mix in the 4 drops, 3 of them were on the receiver / tight end, the 3 receivers. The 4th one was on the quarterback ball placement. 2 of those were touchdowns. So instead of kicking field goals, we're scoring touchdowns there, and that just creates the momentum. And so I think we've got a lot more left in us. We just got to clean that stuff up and become more disciplined. And it's a mixture of things. It's not on the players. It's not all on the players. It's not all on the coaches. It's a mixture of things that we've got to situationally do better. The one thing I talked to, I think Josh Cochran is an elite run game coordinator. I think if you were really watching college football over the last 3 years, Josh Cochran is one of the best run game coordinators in the country. You saw running back set the all-time leading record, move up to, I think, 4th in the Big 12 with a very okay offensive line, and that's probably being nice. And then you turn around and you've got 2 sophomore running backs this year that are playing at a really high level. They're extremely talented, but it's also because schematically what he comes up with, and then he works so well with Mac that they've done a great job of doing that. And so I think we got a lot more left in us.
Go ahead, Will. Jarrett and Ty.
Coach, you talked about the penalties. I'm curious, what's your approach on the fly during the season to improve?
And that's why I think I got off on the tangent of the run game coordinators. Like I told him the other night, like, hey, look, we're scheming up these plays. And it's fun as coaches to scheme stuff up. That's what we do every day. That's what they're doing right now up there. But sometimes when you're in those situations, hey, let's just get lined up and come off the football. It doesn't have to have all the motion. It doesn't have to have, that your numbers. Because that's what's happening. Like, the toss sweep, we have all the numbers. So now you're saying, okay, Houston, you're either going to adjust to this or you're not. If you don't adjust to it, we're walking in. Same run that happened against Iowa State when Taj scored and we won that game. Something similar. Things like that coming into big packages. It's one of those deals that's tough because we haven't been good in the past in short yardage at times. And so we're scheming stuff up. But right now, some of the stuff we're scheming up, we're in our stances for a long time. And then there's some of just the anxiousness. So we've got to do a better job of in the situations, knowing the situation as coaches. Hey, let's get lined up. Let's come off the football and let's score, or when their situation calls for, we got to scheme it up.
Now, I know there's a lot of season left. Anything can happen, but as of right now, team's 5-0, top 10 in the country, and the program's also recruiting at an unimaginable level. What does this signal as a potential future for Red Raider football?
You know, it's I mean, like me saying this, like everything is about today and everything is about this year. You know, I think we have the opportunity to change the narrative and really create a narrative that we can build off of. You know, in saying that, though, we're still, you know, I was texting I got a group text with our 2026 commits. You know, it's really a funny group text because I'll wake up in the morning and I'll have 50-plus texts of them texting each other. And so it's a really close group. But, you know, I'm thinking about those guys, and I'm thinking about the guys that, you know, are in that 2027 class. But it's all about what we do. I think that's why this week is so big. We've broken into the top 10. We have a well-coached team. Lance has done a phenomenal job. We've all been around what Kansas football used to be after Mangino. You know, Mangino really had it going, and then it turned into what it was, and what it was not good football. And now he's got it turned around to where they're in bowl games and they play at a really high level. And so that's why I think this game is so big. We've got a quality opponent. They're 4-2. They're coming in with a great quarterback, and we're nationally ranked in the top 10. So we've got to back that up.
You reference unselfishness as one of the pillars of why this team works. How do you go about scouting that, high school and transfer portal wise?
I think a lot of it is you know, really getting to know these guys and what they're about, and then also being able to call them out on it and talk to them as men and how they respond. You know, I think that's a big part of whether you can do it when they're committed to you or transfer portal. And then, you know, like I was listening to the TV copy last night. They made a point, and I actually sent a text this morning while I was driving in. I was stopped at the stop sign, Debbie, so I wasn't texting and driving. But I told Blanchard, like, when we're looking at what we're going to do in the future, it's really important that we get guys like Skylar Gill Howard, who is not only a phenomenal football player, but he is a voice in that locker room. So, you know, and he's the most unselfish guy that as much as like J-Rod and Barron, they're just unselfish guys. And so I think it's important that we find those guys too that we're bringing in, you know, and really searching for leaders like that are really good football players and they're really good leaders.
And through this first part of the season, what's been your assessment of Howard Sampson at tackle?
Yeah, he's doing a really good job. I think one thing, I think he's getting better and better. I think going up against Mello and David, whenever we do our 7-on-7 and 1-on-1s, they're doing the 1-on-1s when we're going 7-on-7. I think it's good, you know, because I think everything else slows down from the standpoint whenever you're seeing those two guys come at you every single day and then you get into the game. You know, I think he's really in a really good headspace. It was really cool. I got to meet his grandmother after the game. He's from Houston, and that was the first time she got to see him live play college football. So that was really cool. I think he's really happy. And so I think all of that is building into a guy that's playing at a really high level.
Coach, could you take us through the thought process of alternating kickers like you did on Saturday, and then do you see that continuing?
Yeah, we had done that up. You know, I don't think Upton kicked any against Utah. I think probably because whenever Stone hit that big one, we kind of let him ride right there. But the games before that, the 3 games before that, they had alternated and, you know, all kicked. It wasn't anything that for Stone missing. I mean, Stone had the leg. Both of them, you know, the aiming points were off. He missed his aiming point because both were long enough kicks, you know. I think, you know, coming in, I always, as soon as I get on the headset, I check offense, do you hear me? Defense, do you hear me? I flip over to special teams and I say, what's the kick line? And I write it in. I find the opponents, what's their kick line. And Kenny felt really good about Upton 30 and in. Like he was striking the ball really well. And so I think more than anything, that was alternating. And I think a lot of that is the feel pregame of how they're kicking the ball, if they're both going to kick.
Do you have conversations with those guys about what you're doing so that you don't kind of mess with them mentally, so they don't get down on themselves when they see the other guy going to kick?
Maybe a little bit during the week. I think I have a really good relationship with a specialist, and so I can mess with those guys and have a good time. But I think sometimes I'm of the opinion you can talk to specialists too much, especially in the game. I know some coaches go over there and say whatever. I mean, the stuff I say to the specialist during the game, it's probably not appropriate to be talking about in here to just make them laugh, something like that. Those guys, they're a little bit different breed. It's, the one thing when we recruit specialists, I always tell their parents, there's nobody that's going to love your son more than me from the standpoint of his position, because unless it's the last play of a game, whenever it's a quarterback or something like that, there's nobody that's more under pressure than those specialists when they go out there, because they may only go out there one time, and they've got to execute that one time they go out there. And so I kind of look at those guys different than everybody else.
Coach, this Kansas offense really started finding momentum at the end of last season. They've kind of carried that over completely to this year through the first 6 games of their season. You talked about their quarterback. I'm sure you're very familiar. He's been in the league for a long time. Henderson, their wide receiver. Just what kind of challenges does this passing attack and offense in general bring to the table?
Yeah, I think, I could be totally wrong, I have to go back, because I think his first start was during COVID, and I think it was against Baylor, and I was a part of that game. So that'd have to be something we check. But, man, he's he's a true dual threat quarterback. He's got a big arm. He's really accurate. The receiver, by our analytics, is the fastest player in the country snap by snap, meaning he's hit 20 miles per hour more than anybody else in the country, and he's running the fastest that we've played all season long is like his top end speed. He plays really fast. He's got good hands. What they do, they had a different coordinator last year, and that guy's awesome. I worked with him, Coach Grimes, but their coordinator went to Penn State, and then they kind of had a change, and then they went back in house. And what they do to you is they really attack your rules defensively, and they attack your eyes. There's so many times half rolls, tight ends sneaking under linebackers, and then they end up in that void. They create a lot of big plays with that. And then they've got a couple of good running backs that run really physical. So we've got our work cut out for us. I mean, this is I told the players yesterday after our practice, I was like, defensively, you can't watch enough film this week, because they're motioning. That's another reason I think it's really important that our crowd focus when our defense takes the field, how loud we can be, because there's probably not many teams that move and shift more than they do. And that means when that happens, their offensive line's in their stance longer. And so we really can create some problems with how loud we are.
In terms of recruiting, you're getting guys that commit further out from their actual signing date. So what are the kind of challenges of keeping those guys when you have from point A to point B is 18 months as opposed to 6 months?
Yeah, that's a great question, because I used to always say, man, I hope I'm alive whenever that kid gets here, whenever you get a early commit like that's far out. Sounds like you're in our staff meeting this morning, because the one thing I told our guys is it can't just be about money, because the guys that we're recruiting against and the guys that we're recruiting, they all have money. Like, everybody has the same amount of money that they're using. When you're talking about, like, if you beat a kid and you beat Oregon, Texas, Ohio State, and whoever else that kid's on his last 4 or 5, and they really want him, Oklahoma, they have the same money that they can offer the kid that we're offering the kid. So what's the difference? It's got to be the relationship that you have, And so I think it's important that when we have Power Hour and we can FaceTime with them and get them on the phone, I think it's important that, we have a text list that goes out every Monday, that you're texting the players that you're supposed to be texting, that you're communicating with the parents, that they feel like they're part of this family already before they get here.
And terms of quarterback run game, you've seen it with Houston and Utah in different variations, but how does Kansas differ or have similarities to the other ones you've seen so far?
Yeah, so you're going to get a little bit like Utah. You're going to get more quarterback design runs. You're going to get their option game. You know, they've always, since Lance has been there, had some kind of speed option or some kind of option in their offense. So you're going to get a little bit more quarterback design runs. You know, some the other night, you know, we talked about it this morning also. Some the other night, you know, our edge guys, as good as they're playing right now, they can't get pushed past the quarterback. They've got to counter. We got to do a better job with our interior rush, you know, because some of those the other night, they weren't design run, quarterback runs. That guy was just really good at running the football, and he got pressured by the two edge guys, and he stepped up and took off. And so we've got to do a better job. We can't be independent rushers. We've got to work together. Probably got to do a few more games, not just this week, throughout, you know, to kind of mix some of that stuff up. It's harder for quarterbacks to run, quarterback draw, or to take off whenever you're doing that. But they're a little bit more similar to Utah as far as their quarterback run game.
Coach, a lot of people have their eyes open over the Texas Tech defense. Can you just talk about how important the defense has been, especially in the first half, and then allowing the fewest points in 5 games in 79 years?
Yeah, and just from the moment that I talked to Coach Wood on the phone, trying to get him to come here, I knew that he was going to be really good at what he does. I mean, he is a passionate person whenever he needs to be passionate. I've told y'all before, some of you have seen it, there's a lot of times in pregame, I just literally, because the offense hears him, I literally just want to go, hey, okay, we're ready to play. Just do what he says. But he's also he does a good job. He's a really good play caller, in-game play caller. But I think I don't want to, discount what Rob Green is doing with the safeties and what Jack Teachy is doing with the defensive lines, Arnell Fitch with the defensive line, CJ IU with outside linebackers, Darcel McBath, with the corners. Dave Martin's helping Rob with the safeties. He's working with the stars, so he gets John Curry and A.J. McCarty and those guys. And so, man, I really think this is the best defensive staff that I've been around whenever it comes to everybody on the same page. It starts with their leader, though. There's no question whenever you go in that defensive staff room, who's in charge. He does a great job in that room of keeping people focused and on point, and it's showing up. And then the guys, man, they're doing their job. They're playing with passion, and they have a lot of fun. It was really cool. Something that we've continued to challenge our guys with is, celebrating with each other. It brings energy. It's really cool how many times David Bailey headbutted somebody else whenever he pressured the quarterback. I think he headbutted John Curry a couple of times, and, John probably do that with or without his helmet. But I thought that was really cool, the way they're celebrating and feeding off of each other.
And then just what are the main concerns that the Kansas Jayhawks can pose?
Yeah, they're a really good football team. They're a physical team. They've got again, their quarterback is a good football player. They've got some running backs, a receiver, explosive, and then defensively, I think they have the ability to pressure the ability to pressure the quarterback. And then the other thing they're not doing is they're not turning the ball over. I think we're a +6 and maybe they're a +5. So that means they're taking the ball away and not really turning the ball over. And so we've got to try to continue that. We've done a really good job of taking the ball away, punching at the ball, interception the other night by B.J. Jordan. Great interception by Jacob Rodriguez. We got to keep doing that and trying to give our offense some possessions.
Joey, based on how y'all are playing, based on what you have seen of other teams around the country, what do you think your team's ceiling is?
I feel the biggest thing that we need to do is fix the self-inflicted wounds. If we do that, I think we can play with anybody. Because what's going to happen is if this continues, you're going to get into a game that it's a tight game and it stays tighter longer, and that's going to affect the game, And so I think if we take care of that, I really do. I feel like, the offensive line is playing well. They've got so much more in them. I think it comes down to like everybody staying healthy. But I think if we can fix some of our issues that are under our control, then we really can play with anybody.
Also, going back to the recruiting thing for a moment, 5-star recruits committing during Texas Tech games. Is that a coincidence, or are y'all scheduling that just because Nathan's not working hard enough and needs more stories to write?
No, it's awesome. It's great stories, but it's I've seen some really good stuff on social media, whether it's Cody on the phone and they're putting pictures up. It's pretty funny, but no, it's just more of a coincidence than anything.
Anything else? All right, we'll go one more for Ty.
Coach, with it being such an important week historically, are y'all doing anything in the locker room? Any history lessons? Any alumni coming in doing talks?
No alumni, but we're going to have some of the alumni, some of the football players. I used to do this at Cedar Hill. I haven't done it here. I have no idea why I haven't, because I think it's really cool. But we'll have a lot of the lettermen will be in the locker room pregame wise whenever we call them up. I'm hoping that some of the lettermen will find a guy that's wearing their jersey and be standing next to him whenever we give the pregame talks and everything. It'll be interesting, the reaction of some of them, because some of those guys still think they got some snaps left in them. I'm just going to get out of Lonnie Edwards' way if he's in there, because he's a big guy and I don't want him to run me over. No doubt. Yeah, but he's not, but he's still pretty big.
All right, thanks, Coach.
All right, thank y'all very much.
Here in a second.
Doing great.
Coach, how is J-Rod's leadership infectious for this defense?
He does a great job just being consistent every day. Work ethic is outstanding, attention to detail, just the way he carries himself, I think, and the experience that he has and his ability to make plays. I think all those things go into it.
Who of the non-starters on the D-line have made the biggest impact this year?
I think A.J. Holmes is doing a great job. Jaden Cofield is doing a great job. Those two guys in the interior are
What are they doing specifically?
just playing at a high level, just like the starters.
As you looked at the film, how has this defense shown the growth you've expected, and do they still have more in the tank?
We've got a lot of things that we need to get better at. We need to coach better. We need to play better. Our leverage needs to be better. Our assignment, we're still at times maybe a little off. And, again, those things happen every week. No matter what you do, sometimes they show up, sometimes they don't. So I think sometimes it's easy to become complacent when you're having success, when you're winning ball games. But what we've got to do is continue to understand there's a lot of things we need to do better if we want to continue to make the strides we want to. And then, if we can focus on those things, we'll keep making the climb in terms of improving throughout the season.
Coach, when J-Rod went out and then Curry slid over into his spot and then A.J. came in, didn't seem to be a whole lot of drop-off. Excuse me. What did you see from A.J. and what did you see from Curry in those spots?
A.J. came in and did a great job. He's played a lot of football here, came in and executed at a high level. That's what we expected from him. John, going into Will, that's a position that he's been banking reps at since the spring. So he hasn't practiced that as much the last handful of weeks, maybe during the season. But I think he's a guy that has a lot work ethic in terms of understanding assignment at both positions and working hard to be prepared mentally. And so we expected him to do good things when he slid over there as well.
And then this may be an obvious question, but when you're applying so much pressure to the opposing quarterback like your defensive front was, what does that do for your defense overall?
Gives us an edge, gives us, I think, confidence to really be aggressive to our techniques in coverage and know that the ball's got to come out on time. So I think, there's no substitute for being able to get that pressure, make the quarterback uncomfortable in the pocket over the course of the game. If you're able to get shots on him, that affects his ability to deliver the ball, I think, on time and accurately. And then obviously just even if we're not hitting him, affecting his ability to set his feet the way he wants to and see down the field, those things are definitely advantageous for us.
Dampier and Wegman both were relatively clean passes before they faced one, maybe zero interceptions, but obviously your guys were able to pick them off. What have you seen in scout that's allowed you to kind of get these more clean quarterbacks throwing interceptions?
Still early in the year. I think that's a big part of it, and it takes time for teams to have certain things come up or show up in games. That's just the nature of the beast. So over time, play more ball games, things are going to show up in terms of each team, good and bad, whether it's us or somebody else. And so I think that's just part of it.
And then the Kansas O-line, they're one of the best teams in terms of preventing tackles for loss. What's been your assessment of them so far?
I think they're a really good group. I'm very impressed with them. I think they are assignment sound. I think they're tough and physical in the run game. They do a great job in pass protection, and their quarterback helps them in that regard as well in terms of being able to evade the rush. So I think they're a very good unit.
Coach, Joey mentioned all of the misdirection and movement that Kansas does pre-snap. How do you guys emphasize not falling for that stuff, I guess, during the week and then implement it into the game as well?
Well, you have to work those shifts and motions during the week for sure to whatever calls you're going to run during the ball game. And then we just got to do a great job from a communication standpoint. The best defenses do a great job communicating before the ball snap. And after the ball snap, I think our guys have done a really good job of that thus far. They'll present a little bit bigger challenge from that standpoint, just having to, adjust in and out of some different checks that you might get into. But I think our guys will be up for the challenge and excited to face that this week during practice.
How would you compare Daniels as a runner to maybe Dampier or anybody else you guys have faced?
Daniels is an outstanding quarterback. He can make all the throws, and then his legs are a tremendous asset to him. Doesn't seem like they're trying to run him as much in these early ball games as Utah with Dampier, but he's got the ability to make you pay with his legs, whether that's a quarterback draw or a zone read scheme or some kind of design quarterback run with pullers. So he really is a dual threat guy, and he'll make us have to work this week.
Wide receivers wise, is this the deepest group that you guys have faced so far this year?
I think so. I think they've got several guys on the perimeter that do a really nice job. They've got speed, good ball skills, route running ability. Their tight ends are guys that catch the ball as well, big targets. So we'll have our hands full from a coverage standpoint.
I'll try to make up for last week. I think I asked about the wrong coach. With the defensive line doing so great, obviously, I know you guys brought a lot of talent in. What has Jack Teachy meant to you as a coach?
Gosh, having Jack here has been outstanding for me. We've worked together in the past. He's been a mentor for me and understands what we're trying to get done schematically, and then also I think just from a leadership standpoint with our staff and with our players, just very, very thankful that he's on our staff.
Was this David Bailey's best game as a Red Raider, and if so, this past game his best game? And if so, what led to that explosion?
I think yes. That's I think what the stats and just watching the game, the pressures that he had would probably say. I think that he's improving every week and getting more confident in what we're doing. I also think these guys came out and gave a guy like him the ability to impact the game a little bit more because they drive back to throw the ball on first, second down a little bit more often than what we've seen, where maybe the ball wasn't coming out as quick early in the play, and that gave him more opportunity to have the chance to get to the quarterback. So I also think a little bit maybe of, I think that having David and having Romello on opposite sides of the tackle box put a lot of stress on coaching staff, on their team, on their players. And I think that Houston went into that game saying that, they were going to make sure Romello was negated to the best of their ability, and that also I think opened up some things for David a little bit more. So those two guys are both doing a great job, and if you try to take one away, then the other guy is going to have a little bit more action as well.
And I know stats are for losers. It's not what you're worried about. You're worried about wins. But what do you when you look at your team being acknowledged for defensive line of the week, the second time now I think this season, is that even anything that you will discuss with your team? And if so, what would you say?
I don't know that I've necessarily called that out during a meeting or anything like that. I might say something to an individual or a group kind of off on the side, but we're really just focused about the next game. But I do think that they're playing really well. I'm excited. I think we've got a really quality front. I think that they're practicing hard. They're getting better every week, and so that recognition is well earned. And I'm just excited for the next opportunity that we have to continue to grow and the test that we're going to face this week against a really good offense.
Coach, McGuire talked about it a good amount when he came in here, but it's been quite some time since you guys have been here at the Jones. You guys have been having to create your own energy kind of on these road matchups the last few weeks. How big is it going to be back in the stadium and have this night game to kind of draw off this crowd after having these road games?
I'm definitely excited about it. And then we were talking the other day, the first 3 games, 2 of them were impacted by weather. And I think we've had, great crowds for all 3 that have been tremendous energy in the stadium. The second game was an early game, so I think traditionally everywhere in the country you maybe have crowds that are a little bit late arriving sometimes. So I'm just excited. I guess what I'm trying to get at is I think our crowds have been phenomenal. I know it's another sold-out game. I'm really excited about their ability to fire our guys up to play even harder and their ability to impact the game when Kansas's offense is on the field, just in terms of the energy they're going to bring and the crowd noise and all that kind of stuff. So it's pretty cool to think about.
And then my second one for you is a lot said about the defensive line and the linebackers, obviously, but Brennan Jordan, it wasn't really his fault necessarily, the touchdown that was given up, but to see him respond the way he did the back half of that game to get the interception, what does that say about him in general and maybe your safeties on the back end and how important they've been in this defense?
Oh, it just says that he's just like I think everybody in that locker room is a what's next mentality. You can't do anything about the last play. It's just the next play. And so for him to play well and have an interception in that ball game did not surprise me in the least, and I think that that's the mindset that all our guys have.
Anybody else?
Joey talked about how no team y'all face uses motions and shifts more than Kansas does. What does that do your work week compared to when you're scheming against a team that has a little more straightforward, less complex offense? How much tougher is it for you?
Well, I think part of the reason they do it is to try to create more work for everybody, players and coaches. You just got to do a great job of studying and really go through and look at all the different motions and shifts and see if there's any patterns or see if there's anything that you can try to adjust to make things maybe a little bit more simple or streamlined for your guys. So it's just a challenge. Every week there's different challenges to each offense that you see, and this week's no exception in that regard.
Is that something that you on a team like that, do you start work earlier on them, or is it something that you can pick up patterns and stuff just by watching cut-ups?
I don't know that we really start work earlier in season. In the off season, we look at teams and try to kind of do an off season study on the teams that we're going to face during the season, so we have a baseline of things. But I can promise you this: all my attention was focused on that last ball game until we got back here to Lubbock, and then we reset and starting to get ready for this one this week.
All right, we'll wrap it right there. Thank you.
All righty. Thank y'all.
All right, let's get started.
Coach, how do you reevaluate your red zone offense after Saturday?
Yeah, I think obviously, when you go down there, you get that many opportunities and have to settle for field goals. You go back and self-scout. There's, a couple play calls that I wish I had back, and then there's, plays where we just didn't execute the plays that were called very well. So just got to be better in both those regards. And so I think that starts this week in practice, just having a better focus and making sure that we have a great plan down there.
Will Hammond came in for a play, then disappeared for the rest of the game. Is it just situational, or are you protecting him for the future?
No, that was just a situational thing. Just trying to add just down there in the red zone when the box gets a little heavier, trying to add the quarterback run game to get an extra hat to be able to run the football. So that was just a scheme thing.
The last time the Red Raiders lost to Kansas was 2001 at home in overtime. What makes this team a dangerous opponent?
Yeah, I think when you look at them defensively, they're pretty multiple. So they do a bunch of different things on defense, and they look athletic. They've got good edge rushers. They can get after the passer. They've got a linebacker that really runs all over the field, makes a bunch of tackles. So we'll have our hands full, preparing for this defense this week. But I think our guys will be up for the challenge.
Against Power 4 opponents, they're giving up about 200 yards rushing. What's been your assessment of their D-line?
Yeah, a little bit of that's just they played some good rushing offenses, and then have given up some big explosive plays. So on a down basis, I think they do a pretty decent job against the run. Just kind of big plays have hurt them, and that's why the stats maybe are a little skewed.
And then I think it was a 13-play first drive. How many plays do you script out usually for your first drive?
None, actually. So I just go out there and kind of whatever I'm feeling, that's what I call. So I don't have any openers.
And Morton was pretty involved in the run game. I think that was the most most rushing attempts he had this season. Is that something you want to continue a trend on, or was that purely schematical for that game?
A couple of those were scrambles. I think with him, we had one designed quarterback run, and that was on a third down, 2-minute drill kind of QB draw type thing to get the first down. So a little bit of both. But I think Houston was doing a lot of drop 8 coverage. So when you do that naturally, we have a little bit more time, and they've got more people in coverage. So sometimes the quarterback ends up having to scramble a little bit more there.
What was your 40 time?
My best one was like a 4.62 or something like that in college. That was peak. I was better. My acceleration was better than my long speed. Although I did get going pretty fast on the sideline on Cam's thing. We got to get a rolling 40 on that one.
I'd say that might have been faster.
Yeah, getting faster. I got the dad strength. Getting as I age, get a little bit faster.
How have you seen Cam Dickey progress? I mean, I know you guys are using both those guys, but it seems like he had a pretty decent game. Not that Jacoby didn't.
Yeah, I think he's just and really both of those guys are the same way. The more carries that they get, the more game experience that they get. I think you can just see the consistency level increase for both of those guys, and I think he's done a great job with that. He's putting the ball where it needs to go in the run game. That was kind of his first big play in the passing game this season. He did a great job. They blitzed, and on that route, he's really running an option route, and he's taught if they blitz, get your eyes around, the quarterback will get on you quick. So he did exactly what he was coached to do, made the safety miss, and finished in the end zone. So I think he's just kind of showing we really do have two guys that can hit home runs and two guys that can be explosive playmakers out of the backfield, both in the run and the pass. So really fortunate to have kind of that duo in the backfield for us, but proud of the way that both those guys continue to get better.
Following up on that question, is there a pattern to how you use those guys? In other words, I want to use Cam this series because, or I want to use Jacoby this series because?
No, a lot of it, really honestly, a lot of it more has to do with with just kind of the flow of the game and how those guys are feeling. And if Cam has a series where he goes 8 to 10 plays, and we feel like Jacoby needs to get in there and kind of keep those guys fresh, is really more than specific, like, hey, I want to go with this guy because this drive is this style of a drive or anything like that. Because I think both those guys are fully capable of running everything that we have in our offense. So I think the system fits both those guys well. So it's really a lot more of it just kind of keeping those guys fresh throughout the game and making sure we're doing a good job rotating them to where in the fourth quarter they've played roughly equal amount of snaps and can stay fresh.
Coach, I'm curious about the strategy in terms of running the ball late. That 7-minute drive, really controlled for the most part, just ran right at him. And then in Utah, it was kind of similar. Is that part of the strategy, or is that just kind of how the game
unfolded?
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
That's a
no
big
problem,
assist.
no problem,
Brain just stopped for a second.
Okay.
Is that how the game unfolded, or is that part of the strategy?
Yeah, it's something that we talk about. A lot of times, when you're playing quality defenses, early in the game, it's going to be about throwing the body blows and just kind of wearing the defense down. That was a big focus this week. Was maybe early on those runs were going to go for 3-4 yards, but by the end of the game, we felt like we could wear them down with the tempo and maybe get into their depth a little bit, which happened on that last drive. And then you start to see those 3-4 yard runs turn into 10-yard runs. And then I think too, just the flow of the game, the way the game's unfolding, our defense is playing lights out right now. So we've got a 35-11 lead in the fourth quarter. Like, we're going to slow things down and run the football and play to win the game. I'm not necessarily trying to play to score 50 points. I want to play to get wins. And so, with those guys playing so well on that side of the ball, it just makes sense to play that way in the fourth.
How have you seen Barron evolve through these last couple of conference games?
Yeah, I think he, I think he bounced back really well from, the Utah game. Had a couple picks early and then got knocked out of the game. And I thought he came back and played well. He completed 70% of his passes, and that was with a couple drops. And Houston does a good job that, it's that's not an easy game for a quarterback. They give you a lot of different looks coverage-wise, and they rotate coverage and disguise really well. And so he had to be great with his eyes, and I thought he did a really good job protecting the football and getting it where it needed to go, and just managing the offense at a high level. I think, another 300-yard game for him. So we're continuing to be able to create explosive plays and be efficient as well throwing the football. So I think he's playing well, and I think he's, all the little things that he needs to continue to clean up with his eyes and his pocket movement, all those things, he's really taking that coaching well and attacking those things as we go out, go throughout the rest of the season. So I'm excited to see kind of how he continues to progress.
With Cash's health back, how have you used him in practice? What do you think his role is the rest of the year?
Yeah, he's been a guy I've been excited about the last couple of weeks at practice, just to provide just some good depth in the interior line. He's played a little bit of center, a little bit of guard in practice, kind of both spots, and has done a great job. So a guy who's fighting to go out there and get opportunities for sure.
And then in your running back room, I don't want to butcher his last name, Loic Spangu. How have you used him? What is the kind of expectation for what he will be this season?
Yeah, he's just been a great add to take reps off of Mike Henderson on scout team. So those guys go down there, and just that way we can keep the other guys fresh and don't have to send Adam Hill down to scout team. So he just kind of helps us with the depth piece. But he's been a great add to the room.
Coach, was that as fast as your offense executed this week with the number of no huddles and what you did?
Yeah, that was kind of part of the game plan. I felt like early in the season, just the teams that Houston had played, they hadn't really faced anybody that went up tempo. And with a defense that is as multiple as Houston was, when you go fast, sometimes that can simplify the defense and make it a little bit easier for our guys. And so that was a little bit, that was definitely intentional. And there were definitely times in that game where we were humming pretty quick. So that's probably about as, when we're going 2 or 3 tempos in a row, that's probably about as fast as we'll get. But it was cool to see the balance between that and then, the 7-minute drive at the end of the game where we were huddling up and milking the clock. So being able to have those two different ends of the spectrum, I think, is important on offense to play winning football.
All right, thanks, Mac.
Yep, thank you guys.
Coach.